Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tea with Z. My name is Emil Solanki, and it is an absolute pleasure to be joining each and every one of you again on another episode this morning. And give me a heart because you know the deal. This is all about energy exchange, and as a result of the energy exchange, we get to, interact and deliver even more pumped up content each and every weekday. As you know, we bring episodes to you on each weekday morning and exclusively in the Limitless Network on Fridays each and every week as well. So a special shout out to those that have joined us from the Limitless Network this morning. And these are the details on the screen right now. So I hope you all had an amazing weekend. And if you haven't heard yet, and if you don't know, well, I'm based in Queensland in Australia, and today's a very special day because we have opened up our borders to some of our southern neighbours, which are hot-spotted areas. And it's extremely exciting because that's where a lot of my family reside, is in New South Wales and Victoria, and it's extremely exciting to be able to get some certainty about when I'm going to be seeing them next. And I was chatting with some of them last night, and it's very, very exciting to know that they'll be up here over the festive period to really reconnect. Now, what I really wanted to do today was touch on that topic there. It was about connection, creating meaningful connections. Now, as we know, COVID has placed enormous pressures on our ability to create meaningful connections. And we still live in such uncertain times. Got up this morning and flick on the news, and every now and then I, put on the news because love it or hate it, sometimes I guess the media and the influences of mass media sometimes I guess sways, people's perceptions on things. And I guess that's what, they do. But as a result of that, sometimes the stories that, are delivered, somewhat interesting in the sense that, how can I put this? In the sense that they're somewhat biased as well. There's elements of bias to what, is presented. And as a result, that makes it a little bit confusing for a lot of people, particularly, I guess in the world of COVID, and COVID being such, a healthcare focused topic as well. So sometimes I switch it off and I, try to use a lot of other sources to get my information and my, and as a result of that, I don't watch the news all the time, but this morning I flicked it on and it was interesting to see, Boris Johnson coming out and talking about, this new Omicron variant and the impacts that he's foreseeing it to be in the UK. And, obviously that stirs up a lot of emotion and a lot of fear as well around these new variants that are coming out. And, it's not the end of it. As we all know, we're going through the Greek alphabet and we're still quite at the start of it. But when you look at these different variants, but also the uncertainty that comes around as of COVID, the first thing that we start to drop off is that ability to connect and communicate in a way that brings about levels of certainty, that brings about levels of assurances that helps to cater to that essential human need of not only certainty, but also safety and security. And we opened up our borders this morning, and some people are concerned for their own safety, their own security, their own health, their own well-being. And, I understand that because at the end of the day, Queensland, we've been quite blessed and because we've been very insulated from a lot of the effects of the pandemic. And yet, as a result of that, we've become also not only insulated, but in some regards, we've become complacent. And when things start to change, and we get worried about what impacts that's going to have on us, the first thing that throws out the window in any elements of panic or stress or uncertainty is our ability to communicate and to create meaningful connection. And that's what I really want to touch on today, because as we enter this next chapter, I am so excited. I'm so excited. But one thing that I really don't want to let go of is our ability to communicate and connect with one another really meaningfully and in a positive light. And something that came about this morning, which was really interesting, and I was watching this in the news, was somebody had voiced some concerns about people doing the right thing. People doing the right thing. And the reporter came up and said, well, you can put in all the preventative measures that you can, yet you could still get COVID. You could still transmit COVID. And as a result of that, well, then are you being victimized for doing the wrong thing? Yet you've done everything that you needed to have done. You've taken all the tests, you've done all the precautions, you've followed all the health directives, and yet we're still dealing with something that can divide us. And as a result of dividing us, then what happens? Because if people are perceiving that those that have COVID or those that have transmitted COVID have done something wrong in some sort of way, shape, or form as a result of not doing something right. So, in the absence of doing something right, are we then doing something wrong? Well, then what does that do to our community? It alienates certain groups, it divides certain groups. It then breaks down those elements of connection and communication. And as a result of that, we start to build up fear. We start to build up fear of being judged by our herd, by our society. And as a result of that, what does that mean for people that want to, do the right thing, but are fearful of being judged? I know for me personally, I wasn't feeling too well. And I went and got a COVID test, as you do. And deep down, as a healthcare professional, I was worried about what the media might say if they came out and said a pharmacist has gotten COVID, what the community would say if they came out and said a pharmacist has gotten COVID and he was at A, B, and C. And when we start to label these people and start to, I guess, divide these people of, I guess, being about COVID spreaders and mass spreading events and branding people and things like that, it becomes quite, guess, demoralizing, but also really influential in the way in which we then perceive it, the way in which we then place our own opinions and views on these people. And as a result of that, we start to break down connection. We start to break down connection. And why I really want to bring this up right now is that, as we know, the festive period is all about creating connection, creating meaningful connection. And as we open up our borders, and as we know, and epidemiologists have seen, and we've seen this in the southern states, case numbers are going to grow. But one thing that I really wanted to talk about today was really ensuring that our levels of positive connection still remain. Our levels of positive connection still remain, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of stress coming up, particularly around this festive period. Levels of uncertainty are going to compound on that stress. But if we start to break down and alienate sections of our community, and start to break down those elements of connection as healthpreneurs, we have the role and the obligation to ensure that we can foster those connections. We can foster and create a safe space for people to come and have conversation, to come and have connections, to not be judged, to not be fearful of being judged, to be still included in their community. And I think this is what we've got to start to remember, is that as we start to, we're talking a lot about, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel out of this pandemic, seeing I guess the light, and going, well, yes, we're coming closer to some sort of sense of normality. But for me, it's really about what's the definition of normal. And to me, that definition of normal is not alienating sort of certain groups and losing that connection. And yes, there will still be socially responsible things that we need to do to ensure that we can limit the spread of COVID. But at the end of the day, keeping those connections up, and the role in which we as healthpreneurs play to ensure that the mental health and well-being of those that are unfortunately still testing positive for COVID are still connected as part of our society, are still not just ostracized and alienated, particularly when there's such a big focus on connection and inclusiveness and family and friendship and all of that that's going on right now. And that's what I wanted to touch on today, was just how can we as healthpreneurs ensure that the levels of connection are still maintained in a time where there's increasing levels of uncertainty. Because with these borders opening up, there's going to be just increasing levels of uncertainty. And as healthpreneurs, people are going to start to talk to you about this. People are going to be voicing their worries, their fears. And how can you and how can we as healthpreneurs ensure that we are still supporting meaningful connection? And so that's what I wanted to leave you with today. And we're going to dive a little bit more into this throughout the week. I just wanted to frame it up today. I want to frame it up today because you're going to start to hear and see a lot of concern coming about, a lot of opinions being brought about, a lot of people saying, well, people are doing the right thing, people are doing the wrong thing, people voicing opinions. And we've seen that all throughout the pandemic. But what we've then seen is that divide as well. But in a time when connection is so paramount to help us get through this level of uncertainty, where is this showing up for you? And how are you responding? So that's what I want to leave you with today, is how are you responding to these elements of disconnection, to these fears, to these levels of uncertainty, to these worries that people are going to have and are having? How are you responding? And how are you acting in a way to ensure that we can maintain positive connection and positive mental health and well-being? So that's what I wanted to leave you with today. Just a really, I guess, a really broad T with Z episode today, because I just wanted to frame up that mindset as we start to roll this out, because today's just day one. Today's just day one, and we don't know what's going to happen over these coming days, weeks, months. But today is just day one, and we're already seeing that level of disconnection come out. And so that's why I wanted just to frame it up today and go, well, how can we bring it back? How can we ensure that connection, open and honest communication, but connection is the number one thing? So that's it from me today. Drop your comments in the comment section below. If what are your takeaways from this? What are your thoughts? Because like I said, it's a bit of a, I guess a very broad topic and something that is quite high level that I wanted just to touch on today. But what are your thoughts on this? What are you seeing? And how, as a healthpreneur, somebody that values health in your own right, is playing, I guess, is playing into, your role to ensure meaningful connection between you, your community, your patients, your loved ones, your family, your friends. So that's it from me today. And if you haven't done so yet, definitely jump onto the Limitless Network. The details are in the description box below. But yeah, jump onto the Limitless Network and yeah, check it out, because and voice, things in a really, really safe space. If you have some things, in ways in which we can do this a little bit differently and better, definitely drop your comments in the comment section below, because at the end of the day, we're all here to make connections, to help each other, to interact, to converse. And so I really look forward to reading your thoughts and also catching up with you on another episode of Tea with Z tomorrow. So that's it from me today. Have an awesome day. Welcome to Queensland. All of those that are traveling in, a heartfelt welcome. And yeah, I look forward to catching up with each and every one of you tomorrow on another episode of Tea with Z. Thanks for joining, and stay safe, stay well. Bye for now.